You might have to cut me off. I'm going to be rambling a lot about how much this thing.
Ooh, Bradford.
Yes. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Glad you could join us today. I am your host, Tyler Harper. We've got a great show lined up for you today, of course, talking Philadelphia Eagles as we normally do, and some Phillies as they wrap up their season. But before I introduce the panel and get started, I just want to issue a couple thank yous. First, thank you to Anthony Fleet, who's sitting to my left right now, for sharing out the video of the show last week, and of course, the tribute I did at the end of the show to my grandmother. And thank you to all of you out there who gave me and my family all the support on social media. It really did mean a lot to hear all that. Of course, her services were this past week, and it was good to have that time with my family. And again, so thank you very much, but it's time to move forward. So with that, let me introduce you to my panel today. We've got Mr. Anthony Fleet, as I mentioned earlier. We've got Isaac Perry III, and we've got Kevin Cook down there on the end. Now, going into Philadelphia Eagles talk, going into this game against Washington, everyone was saying, oh yeah, easy Eagles victory. We all on the show picked the Eagles. Yeah, it should be relatively easy. It's Washington. They shouldn't be too hard, right? Wrong. Let's look at the score and let's see what happened, as of course 23-20 was the final score. Washington defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. Kirk Cousins going 31 for 46, 290 passing yards, a passing touchdown, and an interesting rushing touchdown as he fumbled the ball and landed on it himself. But hey, it counts as 6 points on the scoreboard. And Pierre Garçon, who had 7 catches, only 55 yards, but of course had that game-winning touchdown for the Skins in the final minutes. So, guys, this was an interesting game from the start, because Washington gets up 13-0. The Eagles tie it up, take the lead, and then in the final minutes, the defense just lets Washington run all over them. Guys, why can't this team play a complete game on either side of the ball?
I wish I had the answer, and that's my first point of grief as far as this performance against the Redskins. The first thing I wanted to mention was their terrible first halves. 3 out of 4 games so far, they came out slow out of the gate, and I don't understand how you do that when you have a week of preparation, you watch film, you go through a week of practice, and yet 3 out of 4 times you come out slow, not even, especially in the first quarter, you can't even generate any kind of offense, any kind of points. Third down on both defense and offense is frustrating to watch. Defense, I see a lot of third down conversions that extend drives and keep them on the field longer. And then once the Eagles get the ball back on offense, they can't maintain any drives. They're 3 and out almost all the time, especially in the first half. As far as, not even being able to score, Caleb Sturgis, Cody Parkey, he gets hurt, and we look forward to Caleb Sturgis at least being able to, consistently kick some field goals. And he comes out, he misses a 33-yarder, which was a chip shot, and then he misses an extra point. So that's another thing that drives Eagles fans crazy. The time of possession is just absolutely ridiculous. No matter how good of players that you have on your defense, if they're out for 40-plus minutes, they're not going to be able to, they're going to get fatigued. They're not going to be able to stay, on top of their game, because you're going to get tired. And even the quarterback, who's not as great as Kirk Cousins is, he's going to be able to take advantage of a fatigued defense, which is why he was able to drive down the field at the end of the game and get this game-winning touchdown. The red zone defense, of course, at first they were solid. I'm going to go on and on because I'm so frustrated. The red zone defense, they were solid, but again, when you're on the field for as long as you are, they're not going to be able to maintain their productivity. They're going to wear down, and the opposing team is going to take advantage. 2 more things. The offensive line. The offensive line, they continue to underperform, and that's because, as we've talked about ad nauseum, Evan Mathews and Todd Herman's not being able to, not being on this team is really hurting this team. The fact that Chip Kelly thinks that journeyman linemen can come in and take their place, it's inexcusable. And last thing, the injuries. They're losing a lot of key guys. Everybody talks about Chip Kelly's sports science and all that. But a lot of our key players a lot of the Eagles' key players, are getting hurt. Anyway, I digress, and I'll let you guys focus on the positive, if you may.
I'm gonna fan you down a little bit because right there, like, wow, you pretty much said everything, and we may hit some of that again. So just take a breather for a sec, buddy. It's okay. Isaac Perry III. Yeah, this team can't play a complete game. How frustrating is it to watch?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm actually not surprised that the Eagles lost the game because if you go back the last 15 years, the Eagles have had success against the Cowboys and the Giants even more than the Redskins. It's like every time they play the Redskins, they always get, they always scare them a lot.
The Cowboys earlier too.
Well, yeah, but if you look at over time, like they've had more success at that. If you look at the first eight quarters of this season, they've only put up 3 points. You're obviously not going to win a lot of ball games as far as that go. Their defense has actually played well, except for that last drive. I think they did like a 90-yard drive, and the defense just fell apart. So I don't know. There's lack of execution, like Chip Kelly said.
It's so frustrating to watch this team. We're seeing great spurts of football played in the first half of Atlanta.
Or in the second half of Atlanta, the first half of the Jets, in the third quarter with Bradford throwing 3 touchdowns. But as these guys have said, they're just not keeping that pace, and a lot of that has to do with just about everything that Fleet said. The bad offensive line, they can't stay on the field. They're not healthy. Maxwell being hurt last week does not help. The defense has played so much that they're fatigued, and they're hurt too on top of that, and they have less guys to play.
I want to focus on the time of possession battle because, I mean, let's face it, guys. The Washington Redskins had the ball for 2/3 of this game. And, of course, everyone knows that as soon as Chip Kelly came in, the preaching was speed, speed, speed. He's going to try to just run down the field like he did in Oregon and score as many points as possible. Of course, we all saw when he was at Oregon all those 50-point games with that fast offense. But here is where it backfires because if your defense is left on that field and the other offense not only takes its time but picks them apart when they get tired, that's bad. That's really going to hurt. So, I mean, but of course we know, Kevin, and I'll start with you on this, Chip Kelly is Chip Kelly. Are you worried that he's going to just stick to his guns and hope his defense can pick up stamina, or do you think he might have to do some tweaking on the offensive side of the ball?
Tweaking is definitely going to be needed on the offensive side of the ball. You can't let this keep happening to your defense. The defense had another good performance this weekend, even though they gave up that last touchdown. I think that the defense played well. They gave up a lot of third down plays, but I think that the defense is okay. They're good enough to help the team, the offense that the Eagles had back when Chip Kelly came here. As far as the time of possession goes, I think the defense has actually played a whole game more than the offense. And I don't mind the speed of the Eagles' offense doesn't come in a factor if they succeed on these drives, like if they get first downs. But they're not. They're getting 20-second 3-and-outs and punting the ball back, and the defense, who just gave up an 8-minute drive to Kirk Cousins, has to come back out and try to hold them off again. And it's too much to ask of the defense that is, as I already said, and everybody else has agreed with, just not healthy enough.
Yeah, my thing is that well, first of all, Chip has to know that he's not dealing with a bunch of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. College is something totally different. College players can play a lot longer, and then you make the transition to the NFL. You're dealing with guys who are late 20s, early 30s, late 30s. They can't run the way they did when they were young. And as far as, like you said, Tyler, the time of possession, that was actually almost just as alarming as the Cowboys game a couple weeks ago, where we only had the ball, I think, the entire game, like 18 minutes. So, that was just my opinion on that.
Yeah, I already touched on it a little bit, but as far as time of possession goes, Chip Kelly, when he was first introduced, he started in the NovaCare Center and told the Eagles media, he told the Eagles fan base that time of possession doesn't matter. Yeah, time of possession doesn't matter if you're scoring at a fast pace, but if your offense isn't producing anything, then time of possession really starts to matter because you're just exposing that defense more and more. The more possessions that you give the opposing team, these are NFL teams. As incompetent as Kirk Cousins may seem, for some reason, he always has great performances against the Eagles, but he stinks against everybody else, and that's something that drives me crazy as well. But even nonetheless, if you're going to put a quarterback, even as bad as Kirk Cousins on the field, as many times to give him as many chances to score as he can, he's going to eventually put up some points because Washington, they still have pretty good weapons that they can exploit some defenses with.
Yeah, it's the ballad of Anthony Fleet right there. Just angry Eagles fan. I mean, and again, you make all perfect sense. And of course, the hashtag Fire Chip Kelly was starting to make trends after the game. Yeah.
Not yet.
Anyway, let's focus on positives. Let's focus on the player of the week, and he's actually on the Philadelphia Eagles, Sam Bradford. As you can see there, kind of by default, but 15 of 28, 270 yards, 3 touchdown passes, no picks, 122.6 quarterback rating. Kevin, we'll start with you. Obviously, this game wasn't pretty, but I mean, is this basically the breakout game, for lack of a better term, that Bradford needed?
Yeah, I think it is. I got him in fantasy, so I'm rolling hard with Sammy right now. But he played good, and he was hitting Riley Cooper deep, something nobody ever expected to see. And he got Selleck. It was a yesteryear performance for the Eagles receiving core, and I hope that Jordan Mathews and Josh Huff and Nelson Aguilar start to see some of the love that Bradford, I think, will start to bring in. He's got another nice matchup coming up with New Orleans. He should be able to throw the ball a little bit better again.
Talk about the quarterback.
Well, he actually looked more comfortable in the second half. That's one good thing to go off of. And one other thing I noticed, especially in the second half, is that when he had time, he still didn't rush the throw. Like he still, he stayed comfortable and actually tried to force the ball down the field. How many times have we looked at the first couple weeks of the season where he would always throw those 4 and 5 yard passes, which actually annoyed the crap out of all of us. But in person, on top of that, that was actually his highest passing yards to date. He had 270 yards. That deep ball is crucial. Miles Austin, Riley Cooper, Nelson Aguilar. If he can open up that deep ball, all the 4 and 5 yard stuff will come, and they will turn into big gains as time goes on.
Yeah, how relieving, Fleet, is it to see the deep ball on Bradford a little bit? And like Kevin said, Riley Cooper, of all people, catching a deep touchdown pass. But Fleet, how good is it to see Bradford actually have a game that we were hoping to see?
Well, he didn't really have a game that we were hoping to see. He had a good second half. And is this Sam Bradford's?
Hey, count it.
Is this Sam Bradford's breakout game? No, because what did he do in the second half against Atlanta? He had a good second half, and then he came out the next week against Dallas and did what? He put up 10 points, including a touchdown in garbage time. So I'm not going to take this second half and run with it and say, whoa, maybe Sam Bradford's going to be good next week. Put together 4 good quarters, and we'll see how good you could really be.
I think that could be a message for the entire Eagles team.
But it starts at the quarterback position.
It does start at the quarterback position.
And he's played 2 good halves in 4 games, so I'm not that impressed.
I hear what Fleet's saying, but out of pure hope for my fantasy team, but also because of what was happening with Sammy, I feel like Sam Bradford was a little bit more comfortable with the team this week than he was with the Falcons team. You saw him; he was hyped, he was pumped up, ready to go after leading the Eagles down the field for 3 touchdowns in this quarter.
And keep in mind, the Redskins' secondary stinks, so take that for a grain of salt as well.
Hey, he didn't throw a pick.
That's because the secondary stinks for Washington.
I'm just saying you guys
Don't
start
sit
somewhere.
Sam Bradford neither. Don't sit Sam Bradford, because I hear a couple people saying Mark Sanchez come in. No, because I've seen all I need.
I'm not ready to go that far either.
Sanchez
I just need Bradford to put together 4 good quarters.
That's all.
Yeah, again, like I said, everyone on the
We
Eagles
all
need
do
to
that,
put
yeah.
4 good quarters
You
together.
take me in fantasy,
And speaking of, let's keep the trash talking down over there.
Okay, sorry.
Speaking of Eagles who aren't exactly happy right now, let's talk about DeMarco Murray, who, of course, has not had that many carries, 8 carries against Washington, 36 yards, and said after the game that he needs to get the ball more. Do you think it's as simple as getting him the ball more, Anthony?
It would be simple if the offensive line can block. I mean, every time he gets the ball, there's a defensive lineman. There's at least 2 or 3 guys right in his face, 5 yards backfield. So, of course, it gets frustrating to watch. And I heard a lot of different people say, just keep feeding DeMarco Murray the ball. He'll be able to get himself going. But who knows how healthy he is? Because keep in mind, throughout training camp, he wasn't practicing with the team, and then he sustained that hamstring injury that kept him out of the Jets game. Mm-hmm. So it might seem easy to say, yeah, just keep giving DeMarco Murray the ball, but you don't really know, because even that 30-yard run that he had, it was a good run, but still, you didn't really see any true explosiveness. You didn't see any true acceleration.
Right.
So I want to say give DeMarco Murray the ball, but if Ryan Mathews is going to produce at a higher rate, I would say just put Ryan Mathews in the game and let him keep producing as high as he can, despite the big contract that you gave to Murray.
Isaac, does it bother you that he said this to the media? I mean, he was asked a question, and it's a fair question. He answered it honestly, but does it, I mean, and he didn't really say it in too much of a nasty way, but still, does it bother you that he said that?
Sort of, for a little bit. And I say that because, he should get the ball more. He had, 8 times on Sunday, you said?
8 carries,
eight
yes.
times. I would probably bump that up to probably between 15 and 20. Let's not forget, they got 3 running backs that are capable of running with the ball. So DeMarco Murray is not going to be the head honcho here that he was in Dallas. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't excited to the fullest that we got this guy because, yes, he did have one heck of a season last year, but I felt like he was like a one-season wonder, like he couldn't come here and translate the same thing. And plus, the second reason why he's not producing so well is the offensive line. We don't have enough consistency in the offensive line. Half people getting hurt, then Jason Kelsey sounded like somebody from the practice squad. But I think the offensive line will be just fine. As far as Ryan Mathews goes, you could roll with the hot hand per se because he actually had a good game against the Jets last week. But I wouldn't mind seeing more of Ryan Mathews.
All right, and so now with all that in mind, we are going to go to our prediction poll for this week, back at home against the New Orleans Saints. And yeah, I'm odd man out picking the New Orleans Saints this week. I know I'm going to hear it from some people, but Drew Brees Sunday night against the Cowboys, he started to look like the old Drew Brees, and that is scary, especially with a defense that if they get tired, we all know how much of a surgeon Drew Brees can actually be. So as you can see there, 27-20, Drew Brees is my MVP. Also, keep in mind, on the show so far, every time I've picked the Eagles, they've lost. And every time we've all picked the Eagles, they've lost. Maybe a little superstition there. But Anthony Fleet, we have, despite that rant we just saw there, we have the Eagles winning 28-24, and we have Jordan Mathews as your MVP.
Yeah, as terrible as I think they are, which they've been the first 4 games. I mean, this Saints, you made a good point about, if Drew Brees is on the field for 41 minutes, you can forget about the Eagles winning. Because if Kirk Cousins could drive down the field on them and pick them apart, you better believe that Drew Brees can. But still, Drew Brees, he's aging, and the Saints, the Saints as the team, they don't scare me too much. Their offensive line is a mess as well. Their defense is nothing to brag about. So I really think that the Eagles will be able to pull this victory out.
Isaac, really quick. Okay. Eagles winning 24-20. Byron Maxwell, even though he's battling injuries, he's your MVP.
Byron Maxwell plays first 2 weeks. He sucked versus the Jets. A little bit better. This is the week we can get it done. They don't have any wide receivers. Good wide receivers anyway.
Well, we'll see. And Kevin Cook, lastly, Eagles winning 31-20 and riding that fantasy hot hand. You're going with Sam Bradford, real quick.
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, not the best defense from New Orleans. I think Sam Bradford's going to have another nice week.
All right, fair enough. And now, Anthony, you had all that angry stuff to say about the Eagles, but now let's move on to a happier subject. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Phillies. The Philadelphia Phillies, who, of course, finally ended their season. Let's take a look at how they did up there on the screen. 63-99 was their final record. Yay, they didn't get 100 losses. A team batting average of 249, team ERA of 4.69, and of course they clinched it during the last week of the season. They will have the first overall pick in the 2016 MLB draft. Where to begin with this team? Fleet, we'll start with you. We've seen the steady decline, obviously, ever since 2008, fading out of the playoffs and now fading to the bottom of the league. This has to be rock bottom for this team, right? There's nowhere else to go but up?
Yeah, at least you would hope so. I mean, unless they continue to be the worst team and keep getting number 1 overall picks, which, it's cool, I guess, but it doesn't really make me that excited because there's no LeBron James of baseball that's going to come and save this franchise. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a few years. You see teams like the Cubs and the Astros who were able to, get some playoff wins. It took them years of being inept and acquiring, high draft picks and developing their team through the minor leagues to get to where they are now. And that still doesn't even guarantee a World Series. So as far as the Phillies are concerned, all of us on the set, I'm sure, we expected them to be bad. So that's why, we're not as angry as we are at the Eagles because everybody expected the Eagles to be good. People were talking Super Bowl in the preseason and all that, and for them to come out like that, that's why everybody's angry. But for the Phillies, there's really no expectations. So, you hope that with the new management they can start to acquire some good draft picks and really get this thing rolling back for some positive momentum.
Isaac, your thoughts on the Phillies?
Well, Well, I actually could put a lot of stock in the number 1 pick. I mean, it was the first one since '98 when they picked up Pat Burrell. Pat Burrell was here for 12 years. He had 251 homers. And so I do expect the Phillies to go out and possibly get a pitcher with that first pick in the draft. And plus, all the guys that they traded away, like Cole Hamels and Chase Utley and all those guys, they actually got some pretty decent prospects back from it, which I actually expect to make an impact going forward. Nick Williams, he destroyed Double-A this year. Odubel Herrera, Ken Giles, Jake Thompson, Aaron Nola, like the list goes on and on. They do have pieces to go forward with, so it's not like, you were like the Sixers when they first started, like all they had was Drew Holiday and a bunch of nothings. So I'm excited about it. Definitely, I'm excited about the future.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the future. I don't think it's going to be as fast of a turnaround as, say, some other sports are. Another team, like Fleet was saying, that has been a horrible team for a long time, Kansas City Royals, and they turned it around last year. They broke the playoff curse, I guess, in Kansas City. They made the playoffs, made it all the way to the World Series.
Yeah, they win the wild card game to get in, and then this past year they have the best record in
hot
the American
team, yeah.
League.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm hoping the Cubbies are going to do it. They're coming from the same type. They got a lot of young talent, and they just won the wild card the other day. I think that the Cubs are going to make a push there this year. But getting back to the Phillies, they got that number 1 overall pick. A lot of talent out there this year with pitching, and they could either go out and grab an outfield bat. So they have a tough choice coming up this year, but I'm definitely excited to see what direction they go in.
All right, and one of the promising pieces they already have at the major league level is their third baseman, and that's Maikel Franco. Let's take a look at his stats and how he did this past year. Only played 80 games. Of course, he got called up in the middle of the year, and then he had an injury that he had to work through. 280 batting average, 14 home runs, 50 RBI, and 52 strikeouts. And Kevin, we'll start with you. How promising do you think Maikel Franco looks? Because at least from my point of view, he's looking pretty good right now, and no matter what, he's going to be, I think, probably this team's cleanup hitter moving forward.
Yeah, Franco actually played much better than those numbers say. He was playing injured for a little bit of time. He was on fire at one point, though. I believe it was right after McKinnon took over. And I think that he is going to be your cleanup leader, at least going into the next couple of years until more young talent comes up. But Franco's definitely the best bat on this team, and he's even got a nice glove to go with it. And he's a very good third baseman.
Mm-hmm. Isaac, your thoughts on Maikel Franco?
He is a great piece to go with going forward. He's actually going to be the anchor of the lineup for years to come. I'm not worried about his injury per se. Everybody gets hurt. That's just the nature of sports. Mm-hmm. He was actually a Rookie of the Year candidate, one of the Rookie of the Year candidates, but before he went down. So I expect him to come back next year and really, really shine along with the other pieces.
All right, Fleet.
Yeah, Franco, he can certainly serve as a good cornerstone, at least offensively. He's shown the ability to hit for average. 280 is a pretty good average, especially for a rookie. Mm-hmm. And he shows the ability to hit the long ball. He has some pop. He had 14 home runs. Especially being a third baseman, that's a pretty important position. And if he's able to play well defensively, that'll really be valuable for this team, because in baseball, it really starts with pitching and it starts with defense. So if he can play defensively as well as he can offensively, I think he'll be a very good, well-rounded player that the Phillies could, move forward with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like Kevin said, not only was he playing well on the offensive side of the ball, you see by his numbers, but he made some very nice defensive plays.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Obviously, you've seen, I think really his full potential offensively was seen when he had that series against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, where I don't know if it was just the fact that it's a short porch or what, but he just went off. Yeah. So if you could see that from Maikel Franco moving forward, I'm on board. And obviously, you got to work with what you have. So he's your best player moving forward. But now let's move on to our best segment moving forward, and that's the Fast Five. 5 rapid-fire questions for everyone here on the panel. Anthony Fleet, since we were just talking about it, what Philly are you most excited to see next year?
I guess it's Franco by default. Who knows what this roster is going to look like next year? I mean, Franco is a guarantee for the team. But as far as Aaron Nola, he had a pretty solid rookie year. But I guess Franco, I want to see how he does in a 162 game season. I want to see how he's able to maintain his energy and his attitude, because the Phillies are not going to win a lot of games again next year. So we'll see how that, because how that affected Herrera. He had that little slump where he was pouting and everything, and it's difficult playing for a bad team. Mm-hmm. But as far as Franco is concerned, let's just see how he can do throughout a 162-game season.
All right. Kevin Cook, you mentioned it a little earlier, but the MLB playoffs have started. Who do you have winning the World Series?
Ooh, I want the Cubs to win, but I think that it's going to be Kansas City.
But the Cubs haven't won since.
You know what? That's not a bad pick. I like the Kansas City Royals pick. Isaac, despite all of Fleet's ramblings, ESPN has the Eagles projected as having the best odds to win the NFC East. Do you agree, yes or no, in like one sentence, why?
Yes, I do, because we actually have more of a complete team than everybody else. Everybody else is dealing with injuries right now.
I don't know. I got to see proof. Kevin, hockey season is getting started this week. Which Flyer are you excited to see have a nice, like, strong season?
Very excited to see Voracek again. He played great last year, and I think that's going to continue.
Yeah, I agree. I need to see him, like, really get that. It was great that he led close to the league in points last year, but he's got to carry it over. All right, and lastly, Fleet, you might have answered this in your rant earlier, but one player who needs to step up the most on the Eagles?
One player, because it's only one player, Sam Bradford. He has to put together consistent 4 quarters because he's the quarterback of the team, and being able to perform well at the quarterback position really helps the rest of the team because you see with Andrew Luck, he has a pretty inept roster, but because he's so great, he's able to carry that inept roster. So Sam Bradford needs to put together a consistent game moving forward.
All right, well, there you go, people. All right, so that's it for us on Sports Talk today. Thank you to Kevin, thank you to Isaac, and thank you to Anthony Fleet. Who, of course, had a lot to contribute today. Thank you again. But don't forget to follow us on social media. You all know the drill. Facebook.com/SportsTalk Philadelphia. On Twitter, @LaSalle TV Philly. LaSalle TV @LaSalle.edu for the email. Full episodes on YouTube, YouTube.com/LaSalle56TV. And, of course, you can find us on the web, LaSalle.edu/LaSalle TV. So, again, thank you very much to my panel for joining me today. And thank you all for watching. I'm Tyler Harper for Sports Talk Philadelphia. We will see you next time.
Okay.